Welcome to Wargaming Recon. I am your host, Jonathan J. Reinhardt. Wargaming Recon is the only member of the TSR Podcast Network to discuss historical and New England gaming. This is episode 216, Advanced Squad Leader. I want to welcome all of you new and longtime listeners alike to this episode of the show. I want to let you know that you can find out more about what we talk about here on the show if you head on over to our show notes. I know not everyone loves them, but they're there, and I'll give you the address to them later on in the episode. But let's just dive right into today's topic. And I couldn't talk about it without the one and only Mr. Adrian Benson. Adrian, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
Fans have been looking forward to this for quite a while.
Yeah, I know. I'm odd, but yeah.
Years, really. People every so often will be like, have you played ASL? Have you played Squad Leader? You guys should really play Squad Leader. And then when some of them found out that you have it and you're a big fan, the pressure was like on more. They were like, really? Like, come on, let's play. And
yeah.
They're into it. They're really into it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's always, I mean, it is a popular game, but it's not super popular. So it's always a little surprising to find somebody who's into it or has played it. It's just like I say, it's a popular game, but even so, it's a relatively small community. It seems to me, anyway.
This is probably going to reflect poorly on me, as most things do. But I'd never heard of it until you first brought it up, and you're like, "So, do you play ASL?" And the first thing I thought of, and this is going to show my age, is that's an abbreviation used on the internet when you first meet someone and you ask their age, their gender, and their location. And so I was like, ASL, like, what? No, that's not a game you play. That's like a thing you do on the interwebs. And I was really confused by what you were talking about. So you had to explain that to me. And then I was like, oh, no, I've never played it. Please describe it to me. And then my eyes glazed over when you did.
Yes, it did. Yeah, they did.
They often do, actually. You'll be like, hey, this is a really cool game. Oh, wait, it's too complicated for you, but I'll tell you anyway. And then I'm like, and the drill just starts coming out of my mouth, and I'm just going comatose. And
yeah, but nonetheless, we got it done. You played, so.
We did. And actually, before we jump into that, I just want to let listeners know about a couple great conventions that are coming up. So the first one that you might be interested in will be happening on May 17th through the 19th, 2019 at the Doubletree Hotel in South Portland, Maine. It is Huzzah! Historical Wargaming up in Maine in the USA. It's a great time, Adrian. You and I have gone, I think, well, you've been every year, haven't you? I've only been almost every year.
Yeah, I've been every year since they started holding it, so yeah.
And they've changed venues, they've kind of grown out, and they have a lot of stuff. It's not just historical games, they actually do other kind of gaming too as well, don't they?
Yeah, no, they do. They've branched out a little bit. There's a lot of board games now. There's, science fiction-y stuff, fantasy stuff. Not nearly as much as there are the historicals, but it's they're expanding it a bit, trying to make it a little, I don't know, I think in some ways trying to make it a little bit more family friendly. So like you bring your kids or whatever, there's stuff there for them to do. Maybe they're not super interested in the detailed refight or the Battle of Ligny, but they might go and play Haunted Mansion or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and it is getting bigger. I don't think I saw numbers for attendance or anything this year. I don't know if they had them out yet, but I don't know. There was a lot of people there this year, so it seems like it's still growing to me.
I know I asked one of the offices of the club, Maine Historical Wargaming Association, which actually sponsors our show, and I asked them about it, and they told me, but I don't remember what it is. What I do know is that currently, as of the time that we are recording this episode, they've opened up the room block for the hotel there. So if you want to stay at the actual venue location for 2019, you got to book a room now. I'm glad you and I have, because we will. Big announcement. We will be there. Wargaming Recon will be there in 2019. And so that's pretty exciting. And another great convention, one that I haven't been to, but I actually would really like to go to, is Enfilade. That's happening May 24th through the 26th, 2019 at the Red Lion Inn in Olympia, Washington. It is the largest convention devoted to historical miniature gaming west of the Mississippi. They are another great group sponsored by the Northwest Historical Miniatures Gaming Society, when they also sponsor our show right here. I suggest people check them out. If you ever want to get on the West Coast or you're up there in the Pacific Northwest, they have a lot of fun. And last year, one of the highlights for me that I saw online, and I think you saw as well, Adrian, was one of their members and actually the organizer for Enfilade for 2018, Alyssa Faden, did this amazingly beautiful Teutoburg Forest game. Did you see any of those pictures, Adrian?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Wasn't
very
that
impressive.
gorgeous?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I'm not terribly surprised because I know she's very talented. She paints a lot, and of course, she's a known personality in the wargaming sphere. But even so, I really liked her reimagining of the battle to make it more gaming friendly. Because sometimes you
Yeah,
have to, sacrifice a little bit of accuracy to make something more fun or make it more playable for people. And
yeah, you
everyone seemed to
definitely.
really enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. No, the pictures were awesome, and you do always have to make some kind of changes or sacrifices. Not everything translates. Not everything that happened in real life translates to the tabletop well. So yeah, no, it looked fantastic.
Yeah, it really did. And one of these days, I would love to get there. We won't be there in 2019, but maybe someday. And actually, I don't know about you, but for me, I believe the only convention that we're officially going to be at is Huzzah, because you might go to TotalCon, right? Maybe you're on the fence.
Maybe, maybe not. It actually kind of depends on whether my daughter wants to go or not. If I do, I won't go overnight. I'll just go out for the day or something, probably.
I think she should go. She would have a lot of fun. But myself, I won't be there because my next child is due to be born the beginning of January, and TotalCon is like that school vacation week in February, or as I like to call it, high flu season. And so it's just not a wise idea for me to be there and doing
Yeah.
that. But I do hope to go in 2020. And I actually know, and I'm not going to say who because I want them to make the announcement, but there's a big name in the tabletop gaming field who's going to be coming as a guest in 2019.
Hmm.
And people might want to sleuth it out by donning a secret identity to go and see if they can figure out who will be there, because I think they might have a really good time figuring it out, tracking the clues, and evading the counterintelligence agencies. It should be fun for everyone who's there.
Yeah.
TSR will, of course, be there. They'll have a whole room of games and stuff, and they'll be doing all that. And one of the other things that actually happens at TotalCon and also at Huzzah has a whole bunker of it, is Advanced Squad Leader, right? They do tons of this kind of stuff, Hex Encounter, but a lot of multi-man publishing games. Why don't we talk about ASL a little bit?
Why don't you talk about it? Because you were the one who experienced it for the first time ever. So,
Well, I mean, you
um,
know more about the game itself, not so much the game that we played, but you have this greater history with the whole complexity of the game and where it's come from and all its different components and that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, just real quickly, originally it wasn't Advanced Squad Leader. Originally, Avalon Hill, before before Hasbro bought all their stuff and turned it into utter and complete garbage for the most part. Um, they were like one of the big names in board, Hex and Counter Wargaming, along with SPI and guys like that. But anyway, one of the games they came out with was initially called Squad Leader, and it was just a relatively, I hate to say basic because for the time it wasn't basic, but when you compare it to ASL, it was. But it was definitely the one game. And this game came out about the same time that I was trying to, feel my way around as a war gamer. What am I going to do? Is this something I'm actually interested in? I'd played some games before that. I played Avalon Hill's Submarine. I bought Avalon Hill's Third Reich, but that was a little bit too much for a beginner. And I'd tried a couple of other games, and I saw this one Squad Leader, which was tactical level infantry and armored combat, which was the exact kind of thing that I was really heavily interested in at the time. And so I bought it, and that was the game that kind of hooked me on wargaming for life. And then there were a number of expansions to the original game. There was one called Cross of Iron, which added some complexity, reworked the way armor worked. It was primarily Eastern Front. There was one called Crescendo of Doom, which added France and Great Britain and covered the Blitzkrieg years, early war years. And then the last expansion for the original Squad Leader was one called GI Anvil of Victory, which obviously added the Americans. It was just a great game, and it's probably the game I played the most when I was a kid. And at the store that I played at, which was a place in Valley Forge, well, King of Prussia, actually, Pennsylvania, called Strategy and Fantasy World, run by a guy named Ed Wimble. There was a huge number of people there who were into it and interested in it at the time. So we played Squad Leader every weekend practically. So yeah, it was kind of my history with the game. And then, you know, board war gaming kind of, I don't want to say died out, but it really did for a while. And it was like in the doldrums. Hasbro bought Avalon Hill. They weren't interested in continuing with some of the properties. They weren't interested in you know, the stuff like Squad Leader and whatnot, given the complexity of it. And it just kind of languished for, God, I forget how many years, but it was a while. And then a company called Multi-Man Publishing was able to pick up the rights to the Advanced Squad Leader property, and now they produce it on a regular basis. Advanced Squad Leader is nothing like the original. Avalon Hill and the guys who developed it initially had taken it. They'd gone down the expansion route of adding additional rules and upping the complexity. Each one of the expansions, they called them gamettes, but each one of the expansions that came out, and had really kind of reached the limit of what they could do with that approach. So Multi-Man got a hold of it, and kind of, I don't know, it all had to be redone. And when I say Multi-Man got a hold of it and redid it, they didn't actually initially produce Advanced Squad Leader, but they made it, in my mind anyway, what it is today. So yeah, they regularly produce it now. It's the typical, kind of like GMT and the other, I hate to say small press publishers, but they kind of print on demand. So not everything is in stock all the time. So it can be kind of difficult to get the parts of ASL that you need to get rolling with it. What you need primarily, obviously, is the rule book. And then the first module is Beyond Valor, which is the Germans and Russians. So you have to have those two components to really get rolling with it. But once you have that, then you can add the other components as they're available and as you have the money. But they've really, Multi-Man has really done a lot of good with ASL, and thank God they picked it up.
That is a very abbreviated but comprehensive history of the game, more than I've ever known in all the time I know you.
Yeah, well, I never brought it up before because you were never super interested in it, which is okay. I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's for sure. But yeah, it has a reputation as being wildly complex and very detailed, and it is very detailed. I'm not sure it's as complex as people, including me, kind of make it out to be. There's a lot of rules to read. There's a lot to digest. But the core concepts are really not that hard. And as a way of introducing people, kind of easing people into ASL, into the ASL world, they've developed what they call starter kits. There's 3 starter kits, 1, 2, and 3. And there's basically 3, what would you say, core components of Squad Leader gameplay. There's just strictly infantry with their support weapons, you know, machine guns, flamethrowers, whatnot. And then you add in ordnance, which in terms of the game are, you know, larger guns, anti-tank guns, artillery pieces, larger mortars, which wouldn't be like the squad support mortars, and also off-board artillery. And then finally, there's vehicles and armor. And each one of the starter kits introduces each one of those components. Kit number 1 is infantry, 2 introduces ordnance and artillery, and then 3 eases you into the armor portion of it. And the rules that come with the starter kits are they don't have anywhere near the level of detail that the main rule books do. But what they do is introduce you to those core concepts that are what kind of makes the game difficult to pick up. Excuse me. If you're trying to do it all at once. So when you read through the rules in ASL starter kit number 1, you've got everything, all the core concepts that you need to make infantry work, so to speak. It's like, you know, all the key components of combat, how to fire, close combat, morale, rallying, routing are all really important and core concepts of the gameplay. And all that stuff is covered in the starter kit, and you can play an enjoyable game with the starter kit rules and get all those basic mechanics down, and then move on to the next starter kit, or from there you could step up. You could easily step up to the full, the full game. So it's really a clever thing they've done there. And the starter kits aren't usually expensive. I should check the site. I don't know off the top of my head what they are, but say around $35 for the starter kit, which is less than the cost of the rule book. So you can get one of the starter kits and see if this ASL thing is for you without laying out a whole ton of money on. If you bought the rule book and Beyond Valor to get rolling, that'll probably put you back $140, $150 maybe.
Yeah, the rule book I think is like $80. Beyond Valor is about 120.
Yeah,
And
it's expensive to get into. They do offer a small version of the rule book now,
yeah, I think that's
paperback.
like about 30 or so. I
Yeah,
think
that's not too bad. You're probably still better off with the ring binder.
yeah.
But the small rule book would certainly work. The thing with the loosely the large rule book that fits in the 3-ring binder is it's got all the charts and tables and everything in pull out fashion, and you're going to want those. So
Yeah, those starter kits, they're not too bad. I think the first one starts at 25 and then it seems to go up about $5 or $6 per
yeah,
number.
yeah, because each one adds more stuff, and I think the later ones might have an extra map or something like that. Then like I can't remember off the top of my head, but you can start. One thing I think people might not be fully clear on is you can start with any one of the starter kits. So it's like starter kit 1 just has infantry, and then starter kit 2 adds in the ordnance, 3 adds in vehicles. But if you want to get rolling on ASL and just want to use one of the starter kits, and say the only one they happen to have in stock at the moment is starter kit number 2, you can buy that, and it's got the basic infantry rules plus the rules that you need for ordnance and artillery. So you can start with any one of them. If you want to do it, I don't know, the right way, maybe you'll get them in order, but you don't have to. Any one of the individual starter kits is a complete game in and of itself.
So if you were to get like starter kit 3, does that have all of the rules from starter kit 2 and also all of the rules from starter kit 1 in it?
Yes.
Okay. So really, there's no need to get starter kit 1 or 2. You just buy starter kit 3 because it has everything in it.
There's no real need. The only thing with if you're a completionist, you'll want them, but there is also maps in there that you may want, and scenarios. So they do have that going for them.
Okay.
But
so
yeah,
those aren't like duplicated.
No, they're not. But
why don't we talk about the game that we played?
Okay, we can do that. Go ahead.
Well, why don't you start? Because you chose the scenario and setup and things like that. So why don't we talk a little bit about that kind of stuff?
Well, that's the thing with the scenarios. I mean, so we played starter kit 1, and we played the scenario number 1. We're taking Verville. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's French. I don't know.
I'm not French either, so I don't know.
You are definitely not French as much as you might want to be. That's true.
That is true.
But anyway, the first scenario is strictly infantry, and by that I mean they don't even have any support weapons. There's no machine guns, no flamethrowers, none of that stuff. It's just a pure infantry fight. So the only counters that you have on the board are the squads and their individual leaders. So that makes it a really easy way to get into the system, because the only thing you have to worry about is infantry and how they function. You don't have to worry about any of the minutia of how support weapons or any of those kinds of things work. So that's the scenario we played, and basically it's a Band of Brothers D-Day kind of thing, and you have Americans are in the town and Germans are trying to retake the town. The Germans are attacking from either side, from the east and west sides. Americans are reinforcing from the north. And the objective of the game is to control, 4 buildings, I think. But the scenario is the way it's set up. Even a lot of the scenarios it's like it gives you your forces and it tells you a general area on the map board where you can set them up. But scenario 1 doesn't do that. It tells you the exact hexes. The Americans set up on the board. They're the only ones who set up on board. And the scenario tells you the exact hexes that you have to place them in. So if this is your first game of Squad Leader ever, you don't even have to figure out what might be a good deployment location. You don't have any choice. So the scenario, it does everything it can do to make the game as beginner friendly as can be done with a game that's, you know, as difficult as it may be.
Yeah, I did find it helpful that I didn't really have to worry about initial deployment. It was more a case of trying to figure out which hex they had to go into. Um, and I do like actually with the reinforcements because they kind of come on in waves for both sides in the scenario that we played. It gives you this broad swath of space anywhere along this part of the map they come on.
Yeah.
So you can really kind of pick depending on how the battle's going. And is that something that you would have known if you were a guy on the ground? Probably not. Maybe, I don't know. But it doesn't matter because it's a game, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, if you want to come on in the woods, you can come on the woods. If you want to come on the road, or you can kind of respond to that way. And just because you did something like that in one turn doesn't mean you have to do it in the next one.
Right.
It was also really interesting on how they handle the turn sequence so that you have almost everything kind of goes through a whole resolution in one player's half of the turn. But some things kind of get resolved as you go across, and some things are even simultaneous. Some of the combat kind of stuff happens at the same time, and that can create a more fluid environment. So if you have these, I'm someone, right, who I tend to like look at the thing, and then I create these really involved strategies. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and these guys going to go, oh, and that's great because I can do it on my turn, which will be coming up. And oh wait, half the guys are dead because it's not my turn. So then what do I do? So it kind of keeps you on your toes to really kind of figure out what are you going to do on the fly. And that seems to me a very realistic approach to how it would have been on the ground, because you're not just sitting there being like, okay, troops, you go to the left flank, you go to the right flank, everyone else cover and fire, and we'll just wait to see what happens. That doesn't happen. And
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, that's one of the unique things, kind of unique things about the game. It was definitely unique when it initially came out. It's maybe a little bit less so now. But yeah, like you say, it is a you go, I go kind of turn sequence. But the thing that kind of tosses that on its ear is the way defensive fire works. So as your opponent is moving, he's the active player. The player who's not active, you know, it's not their phase of the turn. As the opponent is moving his forces around, the opponent can shoot at his opportunity fire. It's what it is, really. They call it defensive fire. But as you're moving your troops around, if you bumble into somebody's line of fire, he can shoot at you if he wants to. And that can really kind of, you know, mess up your carefully laid plans, as it did with some of the stuff you were trying to do. And it's maybe one of the harder things to get used to with the system is that it's your turn, but it's not really your turn. It's your opponent's turn as well. And it's one of the things that does make it feel kind of, I don't know, the term realistic is overused, but realistic because, like you say, the whole time thing is fluid. And this is something that a lot of games, particularly miniature games, don't really handle very well. But ASL kind of does. Like with the defensive fire phase, one of the things that happens is I wish we had some maps or something to show people. I should have brought stuff up. But if you fired a unit in a hex and, you know, maybe you have an effect on them, maybe you don't, whatever, but you leave behind in that hex during the defensive fire phase what's called residual firepower. So if you fired on that hex with, I don't know, say 6 firepower factors, then you leave behind in the hex a residual firepower of 3. And any other unit during the turn that moves through that hex gets attacked by that residual firepower without the squad that placed it there having to actually shoot again or do anything. And it's the notion that in real life, say you're trying to filter guys across a road or whatever, it's not going to be the first group of guys runs across the road, they get shot at, and then that's it. The defender's done shooting. It's a continuous time kind of thing. Like these guys are going to keep running. You're going to keep filtering guys across the road. And as that's happening, the defenders are shooting. And that's kind of what the residual firepower is meant to represent. so it's kind of a nice thing. I mean, people have some criticisms about ASL. Um, they feel that one of the ones I've seen the most is they feel the time scale is not particularly um, realistic. They feel that a lot of stuff can happen in a turn that wouldn't happen in that amount of time in real life. Maybe that's true, maybe not. So each turn represents 2 minutes of real time. Each hex is 40 meters across, and that's an absolute scale. That's what it is, and they feel it's that the time kind of throws off the way the game represents real combat. So like the game we played, that's a what is it, a 5-turn or 6-turn? I think it's a 5-turn game. So
Something like that.
that's 10 minutes of real time. And are
Oh God,
you
we had so much that went on, like
exactly
tons that happened, like more than I've ever seen happen in any other game I've ever played.
exactly? And that's one of the criticisms with time. It's like is that even realistic? Would that much happen in that short period of time? I mean, I retook the village from you in 10 minutes. Is that going to happen in real life? Maybe, probably not. But anyway, there are some complaints about it. And for most games, you would say it's kind of a nitpicky complaint. But for a game that doesn't try to be, is as detailed as Squad Leader, kind of got to give it a little bit of weight. It's like, yeah, it might be onto something there. I don't know. But then if you expand the time scale, what does that mean for the gameplay? Does that mean that you can then do even more in that amount of time? Or I'm happy with it the way it is, but that's just one of the complaints you'll hear leveled at ASL now and then.
Now that you put that into words, that actually kind of describes a feeling I had at the time where like we'd be having a turn and I'd look and I would try to figure out what to do. And of course, that's the first time playing the game. I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. I'm just
Yeah.
completely clueless about everything, really. But I quickly came to the realization that every teeny tiny thing that you do in a turn matters. And not just matters, but it matters a lot. It's like almost critically important. And unless you get everything specifically right, I kind of feel that you don't have much of a chance of doing things. Uh, and by doing things, I don't mean just like moving stuff around and having fun, but I mean actually making a difference in the game you play. You don't have to win. It doesn't have to be competitive, but actually, like, I did some things because I was like, oh, I'll have plenty of time. I'll try to do this. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay, right? But then it caused me to have huge stacks of troops that fled and cowered in a building for 2-3 turns, and that in most games wouldn't be a problem, right? Because 2-3 turns, you're probably playing for 3 or 4 hours, you're getting a couple dozen turns in there or whatever. But in this, it actually matters. For me, I almost thought that there was so much happening in a turn that the issue is that they needed to add turns to the scenario. So instead of it being a 5-turn one, it's a 10-turn one because you really have to accomplish so much in every turn or your half of the turn. And if you don't do that, not only is it a squandered opportunity, but you basically have wasted a huge portion of your time playing the game. And I also think that being the active player isn't as vital as it is in most other games, because in a lot of other games, like being active player, you really do control everything. It is your turn or your half of the turn. But in this, it almost doesn't matter because in what I kind of felt with what we played, there's so much power that happens in defensive fire, and there's like 3 or 4 different types of defensive fire, which to me is very confusing. That so much happens to that, and that really has such a large impact on what happens that being the non-active player is much more important than being the active player. And it kind of got to a point for me where I was like, well, why do I even want to move anything? As long as I'm in range, that's okay. Because at least then I can try to shoot or I can try to do something. But if I move, then I'm going to get nailed. And what's really interesting, I think, in this game, and I like it, but it's hard to get used to, is that when you are an active player and you're moving your troops around, you need to stop at every single hex that they go through to give your opponent, I think the phrasing you used with me, Adrian, was a reasonable amount of time to decide whether or not they're going to do any sort of defensive actions against you. And depending on with whom you play against, this could be a disaster, and you might need to pull it like a chess clock to get things moving along. But I really like it because to me it shows the fluidity of it and the authenticity of it. So like if you imagine you're I don't know, a German trooper in some French village and these Americans come busting through, you're not just going to necessarily take any shot, right? You want to take the best shot you can, or the what appears to be the best in your estimation and your experience. And so maybe you're not going to shoot as they move through this one small section of road, or as they're climbing over a hedge. Maybe you're going to wait until they're trying to get into a building because that's when they slow down the most and they're trying to open the door. Maybe it's stuck and they're trying to bust it open, and that's when you take your shot of opportunity and you try to nail them out with your machine gun fire. And I think this game gets that very well.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Yeah, as to the length of the scenario, though, I mean, just to kind of take your points, the thing that's what makes it challenging. You've only got a limited amount of time to do it. If you have all the time in the world, that's not a too difficult of a scenario for the Americans to win. Their troops are better, generally speaking, than the Germans. The Germans kind of have to move fast and hit hard. They're the ones that have to take the buildings. The Americans have to keep them out of it. So I think the turn length is about right. If it was a longer, if you had 10 turns to do that, that leads to the exact kind of stagnation that you're talking about. Then you have guys camped in the woods. You have guys camped in the building. They're just hosing fire back and forth at each other, and that's boring as hell. So yeah, the length, the scenario length, they tend to be a lot of. It's kind of funny. A lot of the scenarios in ASL tend to feel that way. It's like you got a lot of stuff you have to do and not a lot of time to do it in, but that's kind of what makes it fun too. And you are sort of right. Well, not sort of right. You are right about you do kind of have to make the right decisions. And if you make a bad one and things go poorly for you, that doesn't mean the game isn't fun, but you do have to have good decision making because, like you said, if you do things that allow all of your guys to get shot at, and they all end up broken. So one of the fire effects in Squad Leader is that you can force a morale check on a unit, and if the unit fails its morale check, it will break, and that makes it combat ineffective. You can't move, you can't shoot, and you can't do anything until the unit can be rallied. And with few exceptions, a leader requires a unit to rally, and there's not enough leaders. Well, it depends on which nation you're playing, but generally speaking, there's not enough leaders to go around to take care of rallying all these squads that have broken. And if you get a lot of them broken initially, and then you have a hard time getting them back into play, which is what happened to you, then, like you said, in a short scenario like that, if half your force is out of commission for 2 turns, that's going to make it really hard to win. And that's kind of what happened to you.
But I mean, that's okay. And I tend to be, as you know, I'm someone who likes to play a more defensive game. So I like to find what I think is an appropriate stronghold and sit there and just do what I can to slow down the opponent, which would seem to be what you would want to do in the scenario that we played. And I was like, oh, good, I'll be in here. I got to hold the town, right? I can do that. I'll have reinforcements coming eventually. But of course, you don't have enough troops to hold the town. And Americans don't get to go first, which it didn't really terribly matter because I do think defensive fire is based on my one time playing it. So this is probably wrong. I actually think defensive fire is overpowered just because of all the different types of defensive fire and the effects and how it really can stop things in its track, not just for one turn, but for multiple turns. So like moving the units at all really kind of posed a problem. And by the time I got the option to move them for my first turn, you were actually able to be set up pretty well to get pretty good line of sight on units to shoot them, which was great because like for you that way, as soon as I move, you get that defensive fire going on. And I'm like, oh, wait a sec. And so it kind of hinders things. And could someone work around it? Of course they could. Could a first time player? Of course they could. Just for me, it was very problematic for that to kind of turn things on its head. Now, is that a good thing about the game? I think it could be. It's something I think just for me, it was very difficult because I actually think the starter kit needs a starter kit. I think there's just so much in it. I think it actually needs to kind of scale things back and to home in on just a certain aspect of it. When we were playing it at the end, I remember you asked me how I felt about it. I still feel the same way. I have no feeling about the game one way or the other. I am like true neutral about it because I think there's just so much that I don't get and I'm not even aware of that I think I need to play it a lot more, and I'm actually happy to and willing to play it more. If I didn't like it, I'd be like, no, forget it. I don't want to play that anymore. Or if I was really excited, I'd be like, let's play this all the time. But I think I can't even really tell how I feel about the game until I play it more. And by doing that, I do know that some things that don't seem to make sense to me now, or things that just seem kind of problematic to me now, may not be afterwards. I think it's just kind of a matter of exposure.
Yeah.
But there are definitely, I think, a ton of stumbling blocks for new players to it, and I think people can overcome them. I really do, but I think it's such a steep learning curve. It's hard, and I think you have to be dedicated and willing to actually go through that and just kind of slog your way through and see what you come to at the end. Because after you do that, maybe you're gonna like it and maybe you won't. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it, but knowing that you really enjoy it a lot, I'll play it. And I mean, I don't see myself being like, oh, I hate this game. I never want to play it again. I think at most it'll be I don't particularly love it, but I'll play it anyway. I don't know that I'm ever going to be heads over tails with it as you are, but I do think that I could come to really enjoy it.
I think you will eventually. I mean, a couple of so as for the starter kit needing a starter kit, I'm not sure how that would work. Like the starter kit number one, that is literally the smallest subset of the rules that you can extract from that rule book and have it make any sense at all as a game. So yeah, one thing that would help would be if you would read the rules, because then it's not just me, um, explaining and trying to. I mean, ultimately, we ended up just we'll play and you'll see how it goes, and that works. But it would have been
That's
better
actually
if
my
it.
preferred way to play. I'd rather just sit in and then as something comes up, then I want to know about the rule. I don't care about the planning ahead, which kind of odd in this kind of game. I do think you need a little of that, but I'd rather be like, okay, here we just start going, and then this is how things happen.
Yeah,
For that doesn't work for everyone, but I do agree with you. Maybe not so much about the rules, but I think like a lot of games now they use like a quick start guide or they have like a player reference sheet or something like that. I think having things like that can actually make it a little bit easier and even out that slope a little bit for learning how to play.
yeah, it might. I mean, they've got the charts in the game, but that's mostly combat related stuff. But I don't know, the starter kit. I hate to say there's not a whole lot in it, but I'm not sure what you would have for starter sheets with that. I don't know. Maybe you can come up with something. But like I say, this starter kit number one. That's literally as small as you can get and have it make any sense at all out of context. Um, as for defensive fire being overpowered, it's not. The way you had your troops deployed is underpowered, and we talked about this briefly, and maybe now you see what it means. But it's like one of the temptations is to have big stacks of units and move them around because they're powerful, and they are because they have a lot of firepower. People call them kill stacks, but the bad thing is it's a put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. Um, don't do that. If you want to spread out the effectiveness of defensive fire, then spread your troops out because you can't shoot at everybody. You don't have enough. You don't have enough guys to be doing that. So if you're going to be moving, particularly through like hazardous areas or whatever, which you were kind of doing, I don't know why you didn't just duck into the buildings and turtle, but if you're going to do that, don't do it in big stacks. Just have individual units or maybe two squads in a stack or whatever, but don't pile everything into one hex. That's a sure route to disaster. Um, so but I'm glad you don't hate it. We will play it again definitely, and I know people probably want to hear about it, and I think it'll grow on you. I don't know. We'll keep playing the starter kit for now, obviously. Once you have a handle on the infantry stuff, we can add in some of the other things, and then I don't know. Maybe eventually we'll get up to the full, real ASL. There are some snobs out there that will say that if you're playing the starter kits, you're not actually playing ASL, but don't listen to them. That's not an accurate statement.
Well, I don't listen to the rivet counters either because they can just take your toys and go home. I have no interest in playing with them.
Agreed. But yeah, I think once you get used to it, once we have a couple games behind us and you have a feel for how things go and what to do and what not to do and what's a good idea in the game and what's not. I think you'll start to enjoy it. Like, yeah, I don't know. I can't see you loving it as much as I do, but I think you'll have fun with it. So we will
I'd
keep
love to
at it.
play Well, I would love to play the same scenario again.
Yeah, well, we definitely will, because you still need to have that easy stuff down before we add in even something as simple as a machine gun. So we'll definitely, when we play again, we'll play that same scenario again. We can switch sides if you want to or whatever. But
One of the benefits of the game for me was that we were able to play in a small physical space in a pretty relatively short amount of time too.
yeah, it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours between explaining the rules and everything. I mean, it's a short scenario and it's not a big one, but yeah. I mean, there are scenarios that can take you a lot longer than that, but for the most part, the game is bite-sized chunks. So, and it's one of the reasons I actually prefer board gaming to miniatures in a lot of way. Setup and takedown obviously is considerably easier and faster, and if you're playing on a weeknight like we did, um, yeah, that's huge. That makes a big difference in whether you're actually going to get together and do something or not. It's like, yeah, do you want to set up bolt action or battle group? No, I don't.
Nope, not at all.
But
In any like even playing time tends to be even easier. Like if we play 1775, which I would say is a pretty involved, it's a comprehensive board game, right? For what you're doing.
yeah,
You don't have to play for like 4 or 6 hours. If you want to play a miniatures game, and I love a good minis game, but you need to really figure on it like at least 4 hours. I would say at least 3 to 4 hours on that. And not everyone has that.
yeah, no. Even on the weekends, sometimes it can be tough. I've been ridiculously busy of late, so the last time I played a miniatures game was 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Maybe five. It's been a while. I just don't have the time, and it does. It's like figure maybe what, half hour, 45 minutes to set it up, half hour, 45 minutes to put everything away. So that's an hour to an hour and a half right there. And then playing time, it doesn't make it a bad thing. It's just the way it is. And if you're time limited, it can be an issue.
Well, and it's not even just setup and takedown. It's the amount of stuff you need. Because with a miniatures game, like depending on what game you're playing, and if you're doing like a skirmish game, say like the Test of Honor, for example, or Gangs of Rome, you need less stuff, obviously. But if you're doing like a bolt action or black powder or any of those kind of things, a battle group Kursk or what else, Chain of Command, any of this, right? If you're doing any of that, you need like all your terrain, so you need all your hills, you need all your forests, you need rivers, you need whatever. And even if you're just doing a gaming map with a few other things,
Yeah.
it still needs stuff. So like, I mean, you can get a cigar box battle mat and it has a lot of great stuff in it, but even that's designed to allow you to have stuff like under it, so that way you can create kind of this extra illusion and things. So you need to have some sort of hill forms and stuff, and then you need all your miniatures, then you need all your books and all your. So next thing you know, you're carrying crate after crate into wherever you're gaming, your store, your friend's house, or whatever, and it's
Yeah.
just ridiculous. And then carting that. So I mean, this isn't an issue for you, but I got a 3.5-year-old kid. I get a car seat in the back that fills up like half my back seat and all her stuff. And then in the trunk, I have a stroller because I always forget to take that out. So trying to cram everything in there it's crazy trying to fit it. And I got a 4-door sedan. I mean, you got a
Yeah.
truck, so you can fit all sorts of stuff in, but it's hard. And then like some people have multiple kids. I'll be one, or maybe you're into sports, so you have all your sporting equipment and you have all your whatever. And like, where do you fit it all?
Yeah. I mean, it's an annoyance, but it is what it is. You got to have the stuff. So it's part of the hobby. You got to deal with it. But for me, it's kind of the time factor
Yeah.
rather than the issue of packing the stuff around. So yeah, I mean, obviously board games are a great alternative, but to be honest, a lot of the board games that are available don't really scratch my itch that well. They're all kind of lacking in some way, but not Squad Leader.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but then there's Squad Leader, right? So it's
Right.
very accessible for you. It's easy. You can just pick it up and go. And I mean, cleanup was a breeze, even with all the counters, because you
Yeah.
get your package, you shove them in there, and you actually use a tool. And I looked at it, I was like, what the heck does he have that for? And it never would have occurred to me, but your tweezers, they just made life better.
Yeah, surgical forceps actually
Oh,
worth
there we
every
go.
penny. Yeah, worth every penny. But
We'll have
yeah,
a
when
link on Amazon, I'm sure. It'll be an affiliate link. People can check it out.
but actually, I bought the guy I was telling you about, Ed Wimble, that owns Strategy and Fantasy World. He bought, God, I don't know how many of those big long surgical forceps he bought for the store specifically for that reason, for handling counters, because it's, I've got fumbly fingers. It's kind of a pain dealing with the large stacks when they're all packed in together real close. So they're yeah, for me they're a must-have. But
I'm just looking up how much they are online, and it appears you can get ones with teeth on Amazon, 6 inches for $10.99.
yeah, and it's worth it. You want ones if they have them, and they may not. They probably don't. I actually had to take pliers and bend the tips of mine so that they point in, because
Oh,
if you don't do that, then they don't grab the bottom counter on the stack, and that just leads to dropped counters and cursing and table flipping. So
there's also a thing called a hemostat, which, not being a medical person, I have no idea what they are, but they have a set of these which do curve for $8.99 on Amazon. We'll have some links to some of them up on Facebook. People can take a peek and see what they like. And Adrian, I'm sure you'll find something that's appropriate. And
yeah, you know what I hope though? I hope my surgeon isn't buying hemostats and stuff on Amazon. That's what I hope.
well, there's Amazon Business now for people, so you can get a special deal, and businesses can get Prime memberships and all that kind of stuff. And maybe maybe they do the Amazon Smile program where they
Yeah,
can buy their hemostats and the money goes to help their favorite charity.
that
uh,
would be wonderful. All right.
oh man, that'd be so funny.
So
But like I looked and you had that on. I'm thinking, why does he have this here? Like, did he forget it? Does it go to somewhere else? Because it never would have entered my mind as a newbie to hex and counter games that you would need such a thing like that. Because I'd just be like, you pick it up with your fingers, and I mean, I got short little fat fingers, and I'm just like, that's what you do. But you really shouldn't, because some of those things can get tight depending on how close you get stuff going. And
yeah, and
it,
then you knock over 4 or 5 stacks, and where the counters in the stack are. When you get to support weapons, you'll find that out. It matters where the counter is in the stack, because its location in the stack determines which unit actually possesses it. Then you knock everything over and you screw all that up. And you buy a pair of forceps. They're $11.
so if
The
you were
other,
to give ASL a rating on, like, out of 5 stars, how many stars would you give it?
oh, 5, of course.
Only 5? You wouldn't give it, like, I don't know, 6 or 7?
Well, you said it
Break the
was a
bank?
5. Said it was a 5-star scale, so I like to follow the rules.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a 5-star game in every way, I think. Well, possibly cost might knock it down to 4.5, because it is not a cheap system to get into. That's the one big downside. I think it's as cheap as it can be, given the way the volume of business that they do with it, and probably what it costs. The production values are extremely high on all the stuff. So I do think it's as cheap as it can be. But even at that, it's not an inexpensive game to get into. So, if money is an issue, that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, but now as far as actually just being a game, oh yeah, it's 5 stars, no question.
Everything looks really good. The maps look really good. The counters look really good. They were thick without being too thick. The nice color quality, good printing on them.
Yep,
Things look really nice.
yep, yep, nope. Strongest possible recommendation.
There you go, straight from Adrian's mouth. You don't often hear him say he gives a 5 stars to anything, do you? I don't think I've ever heard you say you were going to give anything a 5 star other than this. Some things have been close, but nothing as enthusiastic as this.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, there's a lot of personal bias there, I guess, but it is what it is.
Well, every review, and this isn't really like it's a review, but it's like a light review, but every review really kind of has some sort of personal bias in it, no matter how much one tries to be neutral in it.
Yeah,
Your own preferences kind of come apart into play.
yeah.
Just how it goes.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I know we will be playing Advanced Squad Leader again, and we'll let everyone know how that goes and what we do and what we think of it. And well, what you think of it won't change, I don't believe, but
No.
what I think of it will change. I really do believe it will, because if I were to rate it now, and this would not be really a fair rating, I'd give it like 2.5 or 3 stars,
Yeah,
and I think it'll go up. I think I'll probably max out at 4 stars.
yeah.
I don't think I would ever go down terribly, but like It's a very middle of the road right now for me. There are things I think that are great about it. I can see issues with it, and I can see why people might not like it. But like you said, I think a lot of it's personal preference, but it really does have a lot going for it. That even with the price, I think you can get a lot of replayability out of it. And so if you look at it that way, as a fixed cost and divide it out over how often you'd be able to play and all the other issues, I think
Yeah,
your cost per play would be far less than I don't know, some minis games where people pay bundles of money for the minis and the amount of times if they only play in tournaments, the number of games they play in, the cost per play I think ends up being a lot higher for them. But if everyone's having fun, who the heck cares?
yeah, exactly. And that is a good way to look at it. I mean, it is an initial. It's a lot to get into the game initially, but once you've if all you're interested in playing, for example, is Eastern Front, then all you need is the rule book and Beyond Valor, and that's it. And you never have to buy another mini or any of that kind of stuff ever again. You've got everything that you need.
Yeah, all
So
your train, all your armies, all your whatever, you set
yeah,
for life.
yeah, exactly.
That's
So
pretty
that
cool.
yeah, that is a good way to look at it. It's another reason board games, in my opinion, are I prefer them generally to miniatures games, but that's probably
Heresy.
I know it's probably just me.
Well, I think I think you're onto something. There's a real reason why board games, at least in North America, are hugely popular. Why there's this resurgence of board game cafes and board game spaces, board game clubs, and things like that, where people just they come, they drop in, they have a coffee or an adult beverage or something, and they can just choose from a game library or bring their own. And that people are just really willing to do this kind of stuff, whether it's on a meetup or whatever. It's easy and there's a lot of replayability there. And then I think some people just like that competitive edge, and a lot of board games lend themselves more easily to competition, or as they like to say in minis games, organized play. That's code word if you've never heard one before. Um, they lend themselves, I think, more to that than any bolt action or Flames of War game or Warhammer 40K that you've ever played in your life, or X-Wing, really, any of that. Uh, I think board games can really lend themselves to it, and
Yeah,
people dig it. They're really into that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Speaking of board games and other kind of games, what have you been doing lately in the hobby?
Lately I've been busy with a lot of other stuff, so not a lot. I haven't even painted anything for I don't know 3 weeks, and I've got a lot of stuff that I need to paint. So yeah, hobby wise, I hate to say, but I haven't been doing a whole lot in the last month. Just haven't been time for it. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think, and there just hasn't been a whole lot of anything. I was hoping to be able to get some painting done tomorrow. I've got some Rev War figures on the table, primed and base coated. I wanted to finish them up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not. Um, yeah, so for me, not a whole lot. I know you've been busy with some things.
So is this a first? Does this mean that I've been doing more painting than you have?
I think it does, yeah.
Everyone sit down, brace yourself, grab a glass of water, and just you got to steady yourself because you're not going to hear that often.
Uh,
You actually, for someone who doesn't have a lot of space to get painting in, and you kind of, as we all do, kind of go through these waves, right, of enthusiasm with it. You get a lot done, and as I'm famous for or infamous for, I do not, and that has not been true lately. You were
no,
right
you
about that.
yeah, you have definitely done more in the last month than I have. There's no question about that.
I am very proud of myself for that, and I'm not ashamed to say it because
No, no, the fortifications and stuff you brought the other night, they looked really good.
thank you. Ages ago, or at least it feels like ages ago, did that episode about that I have anxiety and moderate depression, and how gaming kind of helps me with that with different things and all the stuff I'm working on with that. And one of the things I kind of highlighted in that episode was that for me anyway, with gaming, you can actually do something like a painting project, right? So that you get that instant gratification of you accomplished whatever the step is, you painted another figure, you did troops or whatever. And so you can actually see those real results, and they're undisputable. You have the thing in your hand. And I, of course, don't have one handy because I cleared my space for doing the episode. But you have the thing and you said, I did this. And is it good? Is it bad? It doesn't matter. You did it. And for
Yeah.
me, that kind of gives me a boost of endorphins and says, hey, I'm not a complete waste of space. I can do something good. I'm validated as a person. Yay me. And I think a lot of other people kind of feel that. So I kind of came back into this whole painting thing. And I think it was just by accident from the big move that we're doing because I'm creating this whole video podcasting space in my home and doing more of that kind of stuff here. And it's like, I got stuff I got to work on. And you and I have been talking about this backlog of things that we need to cover for the show, stuff to review and all that kind of stuff, right? Games and
So
everything.
so many things.
And I'm staring at a pile of stuff that we need to tackle and we're working on actually. But the realization hit me was that one of the things that would be due for an upcoming episode, which was actually the last episode, what was it, 215, the wet palette review.
Hmm.
In order to review wet palettes, one must use wet palettes. And if you're going to use it, don't just use it and waste the stuff. Like use it and make it useful. And
Yeah.
why not kill two birds with one stone? So I said, okay, we got these fortifications from Ironclad Miniatures. I got stuff from things from the basement, and I got these wet palettes. I got the P3 wet palette from Private Press that I've had for ages that I used. I got the Everlasting Studio XL wet palette that I got from the Kickstarter by Redgrass Games, which we'll talk briefly about if you want. And and I did a homemade one as well. And I was like, so I'm not just going to waste the paint and do. I'm actually going to paint stuff. So we did that, and I tackled those inspired by Ghost Archipelago, which is actually on sale on what's it on sale? Oh, on the War Store. If people
Huh.
don't have it available at the local game store, I think it's in Vic's basement. You can get the rules for it dirt cheap for Ghost Archipelago, and it's these two columns, the stone columns. They look like they could be Incan or Mayan, South American in design. I'm like, well, I'll paint these because they look easy. And I honestly have been scared of MDF buildings that you get from places like Foreground and Sarissa and things from the basement. And I'm like, do you know what? I got this pile and you're go over at things from the basement and sent this stuff. So let me start working on it. And last episode, I kind of talked about some of those things that I've done. And I recently painted this bunch of freight pallets that he sent me. And you and I actually saw them at Huzzah when we were looking at one of the Stalingrad tables.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of scatter terrain. Some of them were freight pallets. I believe those are the ones from things from the basement. And they looked really, really good. Dave Schuster and Tony Reiger had done them. And they've done a fantastic job with that. But I painted these up and I was like, I'm going to do something I don't often do. And that's paint on the sprue, as it were. I mean, I don't know if you can say wood has a sprue. Can you say wood has a sprue, Adrian?
You can say it, doesn't make it true.
What would you refer to it? I'm holding, for people who watch the video of this, I'm holding up a piece that I'm going to be working on, and it's on a frame. What's the best way to describe it?
I don't know. I would actually call it a sprue. I don't know if it has another name. If it's MDF, you would probably tell you, or somebody else will. But yeah, I think sprue is fine.
York, I would love to hear from you. How would you refer to the remnants of the MDF wood that the components hang on to? Is it a sprue? I don't know. But I'm going to do that because it seems easier to actually paint on that for those freight pallets, because like they have all these gaps, and I wanted to do an easy way of it. So I decided I was going to spray it all black and then kind of give shadow for the inside. So I wouldn't have to touch that, right? So I can just take a cop out and then I could focus on the outside. And I wanted to get some sort of texture on it because MDF is flat. And unlike, say, if you're getting like a plastic piece or whatever, someone might actually sculpt the stuff in, or like those Ironclad miniatures fortification stuff I have. They're resin, so you can actually kind of sculpt all that and so you get that great texture going. I was like, how are you going to do that for these? So I actually went out to Michael's and I bought, I think I spent like $5 on this brush. So I was trying to find a stippling brush. And would you believe it's really hard to find a brush to use for stippling? I just... Have you ever had trouble trying to find one?
I have one, but if you have like an old kind of beat up round brush, just take scissors and nip the bristles off short, and that'll work fine.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I ended up getting something. It's like a deer leg something, but I got it because although the brush kind of like does this weird like loop thing, all the bristles were really short and flat, and I'm like, I'll just use that. So I stippled all the paint on. and that gave this kind of neat texture to it. And actually, with the wood has its own texture, so it added extra texture to it. So I did the whole painting, and I realized afterwards that because I painted on the sprue or whatever you want to call it, there were sides that were going to be showing that I never painted,
Yeah.
and they weren't even primed. So like, what am I going to do? But I realized when I was all done, so I kind of had to go back and do touch ups then, and that was a little bit of a problem uh,
Mm.
with getting that done. Now moving forward, I have another kit that I'm going to be working on, and I was really annoyed because with the weather that we've been having lately up here in the Northeast, it's been so humid or rainy or whatever that I can't get out to spray paint. And so like I did all those freight pallets, but I couldn't uh you know, I wanted to use dull coat on them to really seal them in really well. And I wanted to do extra coats on the resin ironclad stuff because I was afraid that being resin, they're gonna chip really easily.
Mm.
So I have already put like 2 coats on those and on the 2 columns things. So I was like, I'm gonna do a third coat and that'll be okay. And then I'll do 1 coat on the freight pallets. I ran out of dull coat and I was so mad, like mid project. And I was just like, the one day I can get out to go do this, like before my kid gets home from school.
Yeah.
And I ran out, and of course I don't have any more. And the cans are small because they don't sell big cans,
Yeah,
which
I
really
really
annoys
wish
me.
I really wish they sold big cans of that stuff.
I mean, Testers knows people are gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know, charge more and sell a bigger can. I don't care.
Yeah.
I was so angry. But thankfully I got to uh, pull up my Chaos Black because I'm using Citadel stuff because I have a lot of Citadel paint floating around. And I worked on this, which is a dry freight container, I think is what Jorg refers to it as. I'm gonna pull it up from his website. So it's from Things from the Basement. It's part of their Buildings on a Budget line. And these are like more accessible, I guess, MDF buildings. So they're great for a noob like myself. And he has a ton of things in his industrial section, which would be great for like a Stalingrad or anything like that. And so this is a dry freight container, 40 feet. It retails for $15.50. And it's made out of laser cut 1.6 millimeter HDF. And he has instructions on his website. So I get this all primed and it's ready to go. And I'm trying to decide about painting it. And I think I want to paint it blue because I really love those iconic Maersk shipping lines. And although the ships are blue, their shipping containers are actually white, but I'm not going to touch white paint with a 10-foot pole yet. So I think I'm going to do blue. And I need to order some weathering stuff to get it going. But I actually think I'm going to tackle this and get some stuff going. But I'm not quite sure how I want to get the painting done on it. So this is my big project. Once I get this done, I'll move on. But like it's interesting because as anyone knows with those shipping containers that you see that go on those container ships, they're all ribbed. So what Jorg did, and I thought it was really brilliant as I drop stuff and make loud noises on the podcast. The sides on the top and the bottom are just flat MDF or HDF as he refers to it. But then you add an extra piece, which is also flat, but it has all the holes in it. So it creates a slats. And then you put that over the flat piece. And then next thing you know, it looks like it's ribbed. So you get that next 3D going on. You get that good depth and great dimension. You get great shadowing as well. And also, I think it makes it easier for painting. So you can kind of get at it and do it separately and then put it together as necessary and just get it going. And I did some dry fits on this and I think it's going to work pretty well for me too. So I was very excited. And I'm working my way through his stuff and I'm almost caught up on everything. I have 2 more pieces to do after. One, which I think is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me, Adrian, and I know you've done some of his stuff. It's a storage shelter.
Mm.
And this, I think, is a little involved. And he even has corrugated cardboard that you use for the roof. His instructions, I got to say, are always really good. They're on the website. And if you ever have questions, you just reach out to him and he has great solutions. And then my final piece I'm going to do, and I've saved this because I think this is going to be the most challenging. It's a hay cart. And the reason why I think it's going to be the most challenging is it has a lot of small components.
Yeah.
I think the construction might be a little fiddly, or at least for me anyway. So the storage shelter costs, what's it cost? $23.50, and the hate card is $5.50. And once I work my way up through the hate card and get that done, I'll be very proud of myself and ready for more. But you are also working on a couple things for us. You're going to be reading the rules for maneuver, right? So we can tackle that next.
Yeah, I'll try to get that done. I kind of wanted to play ASL again next, but I think we should probably do that. The rules, there's not a lot of rules to it, so they'll be quick to get through.
Yeah, Joshua Johnson from MHWA suggested it, and I picked up at Huzzah 2018. And he said he's played it with people. It's a card game, two-player, I think. I don't think it's for three-player, but it's two-player GMT. And then you're also going to be reading the rules for Hitler's Reich, World War II in Europe, uh,
Yes, and I
by
really,
GMT. Game
really
designer
play that.
sent it to us. Are you as excited as I am about that?
I am, yeah.
And I know this isn't something that we have to review. It's more kind of a we just want to play it, but a distant plane is at the bottom of my pile for us to tackle sometime.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's on you.
Yeah, that's gonna. It's interesting because that's what I'm all excited about for the coin series to play. But I'm told that's not really the one you want to start with for coin counterinsurgency style games because it's just so involved that you actually want to do Cuba Libre. I think is what is recommended for the first one.
Yeah, I've looked at that. Doesn't have any interest for me though. Is the problem?
Yeah, I'm not terribly interested in that period, but I tell you, I would pick it up to play if it made playing other coin games easier.
Mm, okay.
I think it'd be worth the money. It's just
Yeah.
it's out of print right now because, like you said, GMT stuff, if it's really popular, they get another printing. But if it
Right.
isn't, they don't. So no matter
Yes.
how popular it is, it's just one run and you're done. And
Yeah.
then they sell for like a gazillion dollars on the secondary market, and who has time for that?
Yeah.
But one thing that I should say, this is a dumb hobby thing that I've been working on. But one thing that I really noticed in really yesterday when I was like, oh, I'm going to start painting my shipping container, my dry freight container, was that I knew I needed to buy some more paints. And I never really took a good inventory of my paints that I have. And I'm always going out to the game store and not remembering what paints I have or what I need. And so I end up buying 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the same paints. And then I don't remember where I put the other ones. So then I open the new ones. I'll have multiple containers going at once, which is a problem. So it's like, let me take stock. And so last night I was like, here we go. And I just went through all my paints and I just put them all in a spreadsheet. And I wish there was a better way to get it done, but I'm organized now. I know exactly how many of each paint I have, which ones they are. And so then I can track them down and I can like email that to myself or whatever next time I'm at the game store. And I think I'm going to be better prepared because I'll place an order and get some more gaming paints to use. And I'm quite excited.
Hurrah.
Yeah. So it's been a banner time for me. I will say I've been chronicling a lot of this kind of stuff on the Wargaming Recon fan club Facebook group. So if
Yeah.
people aren't a member, they should join because people like to share what projects they're working on. And the whole ASL topic was kind of spurred on by listener Jamie, who contributes to the group a lot. He's been working on some Warhammer 40k stuff. He did a Reboot Guliman, who is the founder of the Ultramarines, and they released this epic looking figure, just absolutely gorgeous. And so he's been working on it a little at a time. It's almost like doing 3 or 4 minis worth of painting in one. And so he's been sharing what he's been doing on there. And it's neat to be able to share there and people give feedback and ideas. Everyone's very respectful and helpful. And so I've been outlining my progress on there. And Adrian, you could do that as well. And a neat thing with it is everyone's great about sharing pictures. So like I pull up my smartphone, right? And I actually got for the show, but I got all these lenses so I can take like pictures and stuff. And so I've been using this 3x HD telephoto lens a lot. And it sounds dumb to use it for a miniature, but I actually am able to get really good crisp photos that way. So if I'm talking about a specific area and saying, I don't know what to do here, or I'm having trouble or whatever, what do people recommend? And how do you think it looks? Can then share this picture. And then people are actually able to get a much better look at it. And that's just with like house lighting, not like fancy photographer lights or anything. But you should share some of the stuff you're working on up there and see what people do. It kind of helps with accountability too.
Okay.
That's not going to happen, but you should. It's a good group of people.
Okay.
It's true. It is a good group of people. People from all over the world chime in there. Have you had a chance to take a peek at any of our recent episodes, like the wet palette episode, for example?
No, I never like watch or listen to any of the episodes that like I'm not on because why would I?
Well, I mean, you are pretty incredible.
It's true. No, I actually, in all seriousness, I usually don't listen to the episodes.
Me
I mean,
neither.
I'm I'm here for it. I don't really see the point.
Yeah, I've lived it. I don't have to go back to it.
Yeah,
Oh, I was curious about the wet palette one because I really think people have a strong opinion about wet palettes. Either they love it or they hate it. And for me, that episode was different in that I came down pretty strongly on a particular wet palette, whereas I don't normally come down pretty negatively on anything.
yeah,
And some people had thoughts about wet palettes that they shared, and I found it. Apparently, a lot of people are very excited for the Redgrass Games wet palette, everlasting
yeah,
wet palette. I've been spending more time on Twitter with thanks to Stefan Pokorny because of his appearance with Nate Taylor on the show for the Dwarven Forge episode, and they were like, "You should spend more time on Twitter. A lot of good things happen on there." And I always think of Twitter as being toxic, but there's actually a great group of hobbyists on there who share what they're doing, and it seems like quite a few people were like, "Hey, look, this is really cool wet palette," and they weren't even aware of all the issues with it.
hmm,
So I had some interesting dialogue with them about the problems I encountered with the
yeah.
Redgrass Games wet palette. And I got to say that that is probably the only product I've ever covered on the show that I want my money back on.
Wow,
Yeah, I was really disappointed in it.
wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did not have any opinion on wet palettes one way or the other until I tried one. I'm a big fan now. I mean, I probably won't paint anything not using a wet palette again because it's pretty awesome. I didn't buy one. I went the do it yourself route. I bought what do you freaking call it? Like a sandwich box, basically, is what it is. Fill it with paper towels and put some parchment paper on top of it. I think it cost me $5 because that's what the sandwich box did cost. It was a really fancy one with like flippy locks and everything.
Ooh.
Well, the good thing about it though is it's got a little like O-ring seal. It's definitely airtight. So I've had paint in there. I checked it the other day. I've had paint in there for 3 weeks now. Still wet.
Oh, I get you beat. So I made a homemade one for the episode. I went to the dollar store and I think I probably spent all of, if you really just want to count the actual stuff that was used for it, I think I spent under 80 cents for what I
Yeah.
got. So I got 3 lunch container thingies for $1. I got 2 sponges for $1, and I got X number of yards of parchment paper for $1. But
Yeah.
I only used, a small portion of the parchment paper that would fit in 1 sponge, so that was 50 cents for the sponge, and 33 repeating 33 cents for the lunch container. And
Yeah.
I put the sponge in, got it just wet enough, put the stuff in. A month and a half sailed.
Hmm.
Paint is still good.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean that was about maybe it's been a month from it. Whenever the last time I painted anything was, that's when I put this paint on there, and it's still I could use it if I had to. So I'm yeah, big fan now. I love them.
Yeah, me too. On the fan club Facebook group that I was touting, one of our listeners, Jack, who actually is a commissions painter for miniatures, he chimed in to say that he loves them. He thinks there's a huge advantage in his painting with them. And he always likes to use the largest palette he could find. He used to use one of those Perfect Day Press P3s that I have, but
Yeah,
that it's a little too small. He has one now that he uses that is a really nice low profile. So that way it doesn't hurt your wrist as you kind of keep on going over the lunch containers that I have. They're really tall. So it's like you kind of have to be up and over. The thing I like the best, and I don't have it on hand, about the Studio XL that I got. Actually, do I have it on hand? No, I don't. I thought I did. Riveting listening for people, I'm sure. Is something they call a wavy, which is just basically white ABS plastic. And it's really like you can go to Michael's or AC Moore, you get them for like $1. And you know how they have those little like round things that just kind of have these little indentations that you can put a little bit of paint in. It's almost like a palette. You just
yeah,
kind of get the paint, you mix or whatever. It's one of those basically, but it has magnets in it, it's long or whatever. And I use that all the time to put my paint in. And then I use that to pull the paint out and do whatever, more so than using the wet palette, because the wet palette just annoys me to no end. And I would say more things about it, but I would turn the show into a not family friendly show if I did. So I will not.
Okay then.
But it's just, yeah, I love wet palettes, whereas uh, we know a certain person down under who edits all of our audio for the show, and he really, really dislikes them, to put it mildly. And I don't quite know why, but he has very
Hmm.
strong negative wet palette opinions, and I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I can see not trying it out and saying, it's not for me, but I can't see hating it.
Yeah, he really dislikes it, and I was like, okay, but I'd love
Well,
to know why. So,
the other thing I've tried that I didn't think I would, and it kind of pains me to say this, but it's so stupid.
oh, I know what you're gonna say.
Those, I should have brought one up. Those freaking Citadel, the
Painting
painting
handles.
handles. And I was like, this is a ridiculous freaking waste of money. But I bought one, and it's life changing.
I love them.
Yeah,
I
it's
use that paint a lot, but honestly, the only product of theirs that I would highly recommend would be the painting handle.
yeah, I hate their paint, and I'll tell you why. You know why? It's the stupid pots. Put it in a bottle that I can squeeze it out of, then I'll consider it. No, the painting handles are awesome. I painted a couple of guys with it, and I was like, this is stupid to keep having to like take a guy off, put a guy on. So I went and I bought 4 more of the blasted things. Because I usually, for 28 millimeter figures, I usually paint in groups of 4, because that's about how long my attention and patience lasts.
Mhm.
So I've got 4 of them now, and for like most, not all, but most of the basing that we do for the other, it's usually 4 guys on a base, so I can paint one base at a time, which a lot of people are hearing that and they're like, oh my god, how do you ever get anything done? Well, I don't, but that's, like I said, 4 figures at a time is about as much as my patience can handle, because I despise painting. But yeah, the things are great. I can't
And
believe I resisted so long, but
well, it's because it's Games Workshop. You were like, Games Workshop, forget that.
that's exactly why, because I kept thinking about that. What do they call it? The combat ruler or the combat
Oh
calculator?
man, yeah, that is so expensive and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but these things are. I don't know if they're worth the money. They seem a little more expensive than they should be, but boy, they're.
Oh no, they're
I would,
worth the money.
I
They're
would
only
recommend.
$8. That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, and people are going to say that you can like use like blue tack and stick the figure on an end of a dowel or something like that, and they're absolutely right. You can do that. I've
On
done
top
that,
of a paint lid, you can put it
or
on coffee
or whatever.
stirrers. Or, yeah,
Yeah.
no,
You can
thank you.
certainly do that, but these are, I don't know, they're worth it to me. I would recommend them. If you haven't tried it, spend $8 and get one and try it, see what you think.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned 28 mil, but I think they're actually adjustable up to 40 mil for
Well,
base size.
it's,
I
well, it's,
think
it's the base size. Yeah. You can do, I think it's 20, 25, 32,
something like that.
and yeah, it'll go out to 40, I think. So,
For me, what really makes a difference and why I think it's worth the money is, yeah, you can do the other things, but it fits better in my hand. It's easier to hold, and a lot of people get like arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis issues or just carpal tunnel and stuff. I mean, you and I both have jobs where we do a lot at a computer, so we're always doing stuff manually. You got to take care of your hands and your joints, and so if you can hold something more ergonomically than a paint pot lid or a dowel or whatever, do it. And so it actually has weight to it. So not only can you hold it and it fits better, and then has those magnet things at the top that help hold your model securely. So it's not going to go flying off if you accidentally bump it. Because that happened to me a few times with Blue Tack, which is why I don't do that anymore.
yeah.
But then you can sit it on the table, or place it on the table, I should say. And it doesn't just tip over. Like the base is sturdy enough. It's big enough that it's stable, but then you can pick it up pretty easily. And I agree with you. I do think you need one for at least 1 or 2 models that you're going to do. It's kind of a pain to pop out for each one.
A
But
huge
that,
pain, but yeah.
but I like, if you had to, you could do it. You would do it
Oh
for a
yeah.
while. But
Yeah, I
I
did. I painted a
group
ton of bolt
buy,
action guys that way, but it's worth spending the extra money. I mean,
they
like
should.
if you're one of those guys that paints like say a whole battalion, like 16 figures at once, maybe you don't want to buy 16 of the things, but more than one is worthwhile, though. That's, yeah.
I think they should sell like Games Workshop value boxes of them where you get like 3 or 5 at a time. You just get like a bulk quantity of them because I don't know. It makes sense to me.
I'm just laughing at what you said, a Games Workshop value box.
Well, I mean, they would have their appropriate pricing to it, of course, but like you'd get a bulk quantity of the things.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, they're actually hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, they are.
Battleground, where I bought mine, they were very excited to get them in, and then I bought 4 of them. It's like, oh, we're going to be all sold out again. But the last time I was down there, they still had some, so I don't know.
Well, do you know why game stores are really excited to get them? Because they fly off the shelves. So places that get them, right? They tend to be places that have a strong contingent of gamers that are into the whole GW kind of mindset in the world. So they're doing all that Age of Sigma stuff. They're doing, what do they call it now? Kill Team, is it? That's replacing 40K and all that kind of stuff. And then there's this whole resurgence of Games Workshop games, not just on the tabletop, but all these. They actually come out with movies now. I don't know if you know. So they get stuff set in the different GW worlds for movies, all the computer games, the video games. So people are going to want to buy it, and they know that they, like you, right, that they don't want just one per to have for all their figures. They're going to buy like 20 of them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to think anything of spending, you do the math, 20 times $8 a pop.
Yeah, it's 160, John. I know you're a librarian.
Yeah, there you go. See, like math's not my thing. But then a lot of these stores have loyalty programs, right? So usually if you spend $100, is it, and you have $100 worth of receipts, you bring it back, you get 10% off. So you get a discount off the thing, which you don't get by getting it straight from Games Workshop. And then you're also supporting your local gaming community by shopping at your friendly local game store. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't think many online vendors sell them at all, except for Games Workshop.
I didn't even look online. To be honest, I forget what I was down there for. It was one of the it was D&D Encounters night at Battleground. I just saw it sitting there. I was like, you know what? I'll give one of these stupid things a try, and I'm glad I did.
It's worth it. I only have one, but I actually want more because I think it's just worth every penny. And you know what? I'm a liar. Games Workshop sells it on Amazon for $10.05, which is a markup to be sure, but it is direct from them.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would sell it on Amazon. That's kind of dumb.
It kind of is, but whatever. Cheaper at your local store if they have them, though.
Yeah, of course, and you support the hobby. You and I have done a little bit of other gaming, though. Not war games and not board games. Not too long ago, we actually played a game with our buddy Alex. That was interesting.
Yeah, we had our second session at Dungeon World. That was, what, 2 weeks ago we did that?
I was so excited about that because that means it's not dead.
Yeah, and we're going to play again next week, so we'll have more to talk about then.
Yeah. So. It's a very fun game. I would recommend the setting to people. I'm not normally a theater of the mind kind of guy, but I love the fact that I don't have to show up with really anything, and I'm okay to play a game.
Yeah, no, it's been really enjoyable. Frankly, I didn't expect a whole lot out of it, but I was wrong. So we're having a good time with it. Like I said, we'll play again. I haven't heard back from Alex, but assuming he's available, we'll go again. I've checked with the game master. She's available Wednesday night, so assuming we can nail him down, yeah, we'll play again one evening.
Yeah, I was talking with him earlier, and apparently he's in soccer mode. His kid's doing a lot of soccer. So he's doing the soccer life. And we'll see how that goes. But I'm very excited for it. I believe I am free as well to play, and I can't wait to get the Paladin in to see what's going on with, I don't even remember the name of them, but those weird acid monster things that ate through my armor. And it just is terrible. How dare they be immune to my Paladin ways of my religion that I can't tell you about, which may or may not have more than one god.
Whose name you don't even know.
I'm not allowed to know. I'm not at a higher level like the Masons.
Oh my god, it's so
good.
We're playing so bad too. She's doing a pretty good job of not letting us wipe.
Oh, she's amazing. I can't tell how much of it is that just like we're terrible gamers, or how much of it is that we're just not rolling well.
We're terrible gamers. We have had some bad dice. There's no question about that. But there's certainly been some questionable decisions. So,
oh, I'm a terrible gamer. I was telling my wife about a game that we played recently, and I don't remember what it was, but I was like, this is how it normally is for me, that I lose. She's like, you tend to lose all your games. I said, yeah, but it doesn't matter because I have a good time. I actually related another piece of gaming actually that I forgot about. I played my first ever family board game with my
Oh,
wife and my 3.5-year-old, and it was
wow.
very. So it's, of course, it's a kids game, right? And I'm gonna try to pull it up and see if I can find it because I think I got the name right. And it's gonna sound dumb to a lot of people, but it was so much fun. So it's called Raccoon Rumpus. You can get it on Amazon for $13.26. It's from, I don't know, one of those like educational people places. It's not a Melissa and Doug, but it's kind of like that. And it's a color matching kind of game where you have all these different cards, and everyone has a card that's a raccoon that has this little 3D raccoon head that's on it, and you have to give your raccoon, you need 5 outfits to win. And so there's all these different outfits on the cards with the cutouts for the raccoon head to go in, and
Yeah.
they have different colored tops and bottoms. They might be like a chef, or maybe there's like a ninja. So like they might have like say red shorts and a blue top or whatever, and you roll these 2 dice. One dice has colors on it, and that's how you know what color clothing you have to pick. And the other one shows outlines of clothing. So you can get things like a top, you can get a bottom, you can get a whole outfit, or there's also a side that has underwear on it. I'll come back to that in a moment. And so, like, I was trying to teach my kid, how do you roll dice? Like, how do you teach a 3.5-year-old how to roll dice? And so, like, you can show her, but like a 3.5-year-old is like, I'm just going to put the dice down and this is what I want. That's not how you do it. So I'm like, pick up the dice and go like this. And I'm like shaking my hands. So she picks up the dice and she goes like up and down and not shaking. I said, and then drop them on the floor. So she drops them, and of course they go everywhere.
Yeah.
But then like trying to get her to be like, okay, here's what is this color, and here's this. And so all you get red, and it has pants. So you pick an outfit that has red pants, any one you want, right? Doesn't matter. And you put it on your thing. Then it goes to the next player. But if you roll underwear, you lose all the outfits on your raccoon, and then you have to start over. So you don't lose, but like you just put really far behind because almost every turn you're guaranteed to get an outfit of some sort,
Mm.
or and which means you're one step closer to winning. And so I tell you, no lie, she loved it so much. We played like almost a dozen games of it in a row, and it's pretty quick, but like still. So like my wife's sitting on the couch, very pregnant, trying to roll the dice on the floor because my kid's on the floor and I'm sitting on the floor with her. And you have all these cards. There's like 20 cards laid out, and trying to, and we're like all laughing and having so much fun. And it was great. And every time I would roll underwear, because of course I'm the one who rolls it all the time, my daughter's like, "Oh, daddy, I'm so sorry." And I was like, "That's so sweet." Except for when she rolls it, she's like, "Oh, wait, I get to pick up." And I'm like, "Aha, you caught on early." Like every 3.5-year-old, you just want to win. And it was really funny. But I would recommend this to people who have young children who want to play games with them and get them into gaming. This is a way to do it, and it is so much fun. So I'll have a link to that somewhere. But it is on Amazon. You could probably get it at your, I don't know. Does like Lakeshore even still have things on like the Learning Center? Remember how there were all those like educational kids
Yeah,
stores?
I don't know. I don't know.
Ask at your friendly local game store. The Wiz up near us, I bet used to probably had stuff like this because they carried a lot of that kind of early
They
childhood.
did early childhood and educational stuff. I haven't been up there since the remodel and everything, so I don't know what it's like.
I
But
want
yeah,
to
they
go.
did.
You and I should take a trip.
We should actually. It's not like it's far away.
Let's plan it.
Um,
45 minutes from us, I think.
yeah, maybe not even maybe, but yeah, they used to have a bunch of that kind of stuff. So it's the kind of things they would have carried, whether they still handle that stuff or not. I don't know.
It's worth looking out. But this game, I liked it because it's not just a simple like matching memory game, which is very important. But most kids' games at this age, that's what they are. But this had this added layer of you have probability, you have that dice mechanic, so you kind of introducing that, and just hard enough for the kids, so that at least with my daughter, there was a little bit of a challenge, and she didn't know what was going to happen. Neither did we. And it's interesting because like when you're trying to teach them how to do stuff, maybe you want to lose a turn, so you're not just trouncing your kid every time. I mean, they get to learn to lose eventually, but like the first time playing, you don't want them to be in tears because like everything's just messing up on them. But it's kind of hard to do with this. So like it's kind of neat you have that balance going on. But
Yeah.
That was a highlight for me. That
Cool.
and playing ASL actually was a lot of fun.
Good.
Um, what else do you got, Adrian?
Nothing.
Nothing. I do want to say that we actually got a lot of feedback about the last episode that you and I did. I'm trying to remember, what was it? Episode 214, tabletop update, where we just kind of talked about the things that we were doing, the gaming and everything.
Yeah.
That really resounded with people. I got a fair bit of feedback, people saying that was one of their favorite episodes that we've done.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they felt we had enough content. It was more free flowing and relaxed, and they liked that we didn't kind of plan as much. And I don't know about you, but I was trying to channel that for this episode so that we were like, I didn't do an outline. I was just like, here we go. This is what we're going to talk about. Let's see
I
how,
know. I know you didn't. You know how I know you didn't?
you checked.
My phone wasn't ding, 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 ding every time you add something to freaking wonder. So I was very happy about that. Yeah.
I didn't know you got all those dings. Oh my god, that's too funny.
Well, I finally wisened up and I turned off the alerts. So now I never know if you make a freaking list or not. I don't care. But
That episode we did, I'm trying to pull up the actual numbers. It's also probably our most popular episode for the year in terms of downloads.
wow.
Because I think, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, so I'm guesstimating here because I'm trying to find it, and I can't seem to get it up as we're chatting. But I feel like we got over 3 or 4,000 downloads on that.
Wow, that's crazy. Cool.
And I mean, we normally get about 1,200 plus.
Yeah.
So that's usually pretty good. But I was like, wow, I was quite amazed. I really do think it was like over 3,000. Because I remember looking at it, I was like, why do we get so many downloads of this thing? I want to say something you and I had talked about that I probably shouldn't say on air, but I think you and I were both kind of hesitant with that episode and not expecting it to do very well. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, that would be a fair assumption because who wants to listen to two idiots babbling at each other with no plan? But apparently 3,000 people do.
Well, they like us, right?
I guess that's good though. Maybe we should do more like that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we have enough stuff to talk about, I think people are really into it.
Yeah.
And it's just I was shocked because I mean, we've always planned so much for what we do, so it's really nice and polished and maybe a little too rigid. What? Okay, laugh it up, furball. Yes? Something you want to say?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
we come off as polished. There's no doubt about that.
Well, we are professionals here. Unlike
God. And when he says that we do a lot of planning, what he means is he does a lot of planning. I don't have a whole lot of input into the episodes because I'm not a list maker the way John is. So
I am such a list maker. Like I need
totally.
lists for lists. Okay,
Yeah.
here, I get stats. Okay, I was wrong. We have 2,773 downloads for that episode.
Okay.
So just not quite 3,000, but almost. I think I'm missing some numbers there, but I'm going to round it up to 3,000. I think people will excuse me.
Yeah, still more than twice the normal download. So yay.
Yeah, because I mean, we normally do about 1,200 downloads
Yeah.
in a year, and I was very impressed with that. But there's usually a lot of prep, right? Because we get that outline that it takes place, and we look at that, and then like we review. Like I guess we've done prep because like we were painting and things like that. But like if we're doing a review, like there's really like, oh, make sure we cover this and that, and really get into it.
Well, yeah, reviews are a little different though. You gotta make sure you cover all the important stuff about it to whatever it happens to be, a game or product or whatever.
Well, I mean, you need to be
So
fair.
you need to. Well, it's got to be more structured that way, so you don't miss anything that might be interesting or important. But
a lot of the episodes, I think no one has said this, but I think what they would say if they were trying to not be too kind is that maybe it's a little too structured and rigid, so it doesn't flow as well. It doesn't feel as real.
yeah, I mean that might be legitimate. I mean because it's definitely I mean, most of the episodes are definitely not just you and me talking back and forth to each other. So yeah, obviously that's not going to feel like you're listening to a conversation. I get that. But I just would have assumed that more people would want a little like, topic based structure to the discussion. But if not, then okay.
Yeah, me too. Like I kind of always like for you don't, but for one who listens to podcasts, the ones that tend to do really well and the ones that tend to have a dedicated following also tend to have a more structured thing. They might actually have segments, which we've never really done, but they'll
Yeah.
have, a very like, here's a start and here's a beginning of this part of the show, even if they don't call it a segment, but you can tell there's clear transitions from one thing to another. And it's very regimented to give the idea is to give comfort to the listener so they know what to expect. And so we've kind of done some of that, but like this episode too, of course, very free flowing. And the only other one I can think of that was anything like that this year was the one where I talked about my anxiety. And that was another one that had a lot of people listen to it. And even more than that, I think it's the most interacted with episode. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is I got tons of comments on social media, tons of emails and feedback, and there's people reaching out to me privately, just a lot of that kind of stuff. And I think maybe because it was a more personal issue and one that I think a lot of people who listen, or a good number of people who listen, have either some first or second or third hand experience with. I think people just kind of felt it touched them in a
Yeah.
way. And I think when you get things like that, or you get like where we just kind of talked in episode 214 of this one, I think what people like is, and what they picked up on with these was that it made them feel that they were with us, right? Like at the game table as we're playing a game, just hanging out and chatting. And for
Mm.
some people, they don't get that necessarily in their actual life because maybe the game store's too far away, the club's too far away, they can't get to it, or they have all these life responsibilities that are going on. And so
Yeah.
maybe if they play, they're doing solo games, or maybe they don't get to play a whole lot. Maybe they don't get a whole lot of interaction in this kind of way with other gamers. And so I think that's something about the show that they really like.
Yeah.
Or maybe people just like us. I don't know. I think it's
Maybe.
you.
It's probably me, but yeah, no, like I said, I just didn't think that would be a more popular way to go. But if people like it, it's an easier way to go.
I was shocked.
You don't have to make any more lists. Thank God.
No, and I tell you, I don't think I've made a list. No, I made a list for the wet palette one because I'm
Well, here
really
again, though, that's a review. That's different.
well. Do you know what? I'm anal, and I scaled it back some, but I was really worried about backlash, especially from Redgrass games, because I knew what I was going to say,
Yeah.
and I was really worried about that, and I still am a little bit, even though they were dreadful to me in customer service, and not just me, but to other people too that I've talked with, just dreadful, and that's a
Mm.
polite way to put it. And it makes me concerned if they're that dreadful to people who are trying to get help with stuff, who've given them money. What are they going to do to a person who just kind of, in our world, slashes what they've done?
What? Yeah. I mean, what? Yeah, definitely. What are they going to do to a person like that? Like, if you look out your front window right now, is there a car parked across the street that you don't normally see there?
Maybe I don't. Well, and I'm joking, and of course there's not. But like we shared that article, the Kotaku article the other day on Facebook, and I don't think it's something that like you and I have to worry about.
Yeah.
But like, it's a real concern for people who are content creators. I think more so for YouTubers and for Twitch streamers who are doing like video games or even like role playing game kind of stuff. But I think they have to be very, very careful because members of their community either feel overly familiar to the point where they feel like they can just show up and come in and have dinner, and they'll try the door, and if it's open, you come home and you see them sitting on your couch and you're like, who are you and what are you doing here? Or
Yeah.
to the other way, where there's a negative reaction like there was at that Madden tournament, and
Yeah.
people getting shot in,
Yeah.
or that guy. Do you ever watch YouTube much? Are you familiar with the slow-mo guys?
Yeah.
So one of the slow-mo guys works for Rooster Teeth, and him and his, I think, fiance now, they live in Texas, of course, because that's where Rooster Teeth is based. He's from the UK. And one day early in the morning, they're in bed, and one of his audience members, the slow-mo guys, broke into his house with a weapon, I believe, and they're like hiding in the closet, him and his significant other, calling the cops
Yeah.
because like, what do you do? Well, I know what you would do. But like, what do you do? Like, if someone comes breaking into jail, it's like, I got a kid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's I mean, but it's not to wander off the gaming topic, but it's not just like authors or YouTubers or everybody has to worry about that crap nowadays because that's the world we live in, at least here in the States.
It's terrible.
No boundaries and no consequences. Do what you want.
True. And
That's
I think,
that's the attitude that gets you into trouble, it seems. But there are even discounting that there's crazy people out there. And if you're somebody that's, like these YouTubers, like you're out there and, they see you, they know who you are. And if they're crazy, I don't want to say it makes you an easy target, but it does make you an easy target for somebody like that. So they definitely have to be uh, more aware than the average person. And I mean, it used to be like, and it still is like celebrities, TV stars, movies, or whatever like that have their stalkers. But YouTube and like Twitch are huge
yeah.
platforms, and it's maybe they're not making the money that a sitcom star, but it's the same level of exposure. It might even be more. So yeah, they got to be conscious of it for sure, and it sucks, but it is what it is.
I mean, like some of them, they go around, they tour, or they'll go to conventions, or they'll have their own conventions, like bigger in some ways than some of these smaller time, big time celebrities. But some of the smaller ones, they're even bigger than that. And I think it's easier for a podcaster, but like even podcasters kind of get stuff going on. I've gotten my fair share of hate mail, like literal hate mail has come over the years for
Yeah,
things. And the fact that we do video now makes me a little more aware. So like I shot a video the other day of me street painting outside near where I live. And I was very mindful when I was shooting the video of where the camera was and what it was going to see. So it wouldn't see any address numbers, it wouldn't see license
yeah,
plates or like any of that kind of really identifiable kind of things, and who
yeah,
else was going to be in the background. Because like I think, like I said, we don't really have to worry, but like we go out to things, right?
yeah,
And anyone can see on social media that we're going to be at a whatever convention, we're going to be here and there. And does that mean like your home's easier to break into? Does that mean you're a target? And like there are people going to conventions, and again, not really the ones we go to, but going to conventions and getting like sucker punched over
yeah.
something they put online. And it's ridiculous. And
Well,
just how extra precautious you have to be is crazy.
yeah. Yes, it is.
But in light of all that, I do just want to remind everyone once again about the conventions I mentioned earlier in the show, that you can go to these wonderful places and have lots of fun, where you can be with like minded, kind individuals playing all sorts of games. So if you want to go and you're on the East Coast, you can get to it. Go to Huzzah, May 17th through the 19th, 2019, up at the Portland's Doubletree and South Portland. You'll have a lot of fun. They're booking rooms right now. Rooms are going fast. We got ours, thankfully. We'll be there doing that. And then Enfilade up in the Pacific Northwest is being held May 24th to the 26th at the Red Lion Inn in Olympia, Washington. Be another great time. People can check those out and see what's going on there. And we'll have stuff on our fan club page on Facebook, and I have all that. We got our Patreon group. Want to thank all the Patreon backers for supporting us. And believe it or not, and I was quite surprised when I checked the numbers on this, more financial support comes in from our Patreon backers than our sponsorships.
Hmm.
Overwhelmingly so.
Wow. Okay.
So this is a listener supported show like PBS, and we really appreciate it because it allows us to do what we do. And thankfully, some companies give us product to review, like Ironclad Miniatures did, and Things from the Basement has done in the past. But then, like other things, we got to pick up, like Maneuver, right? We bought that ourselves to cover on the show, and so your financial support allows for things like that. It allows for new equipment. I was talking about lenses, right, to take pictures to share with everyone for my smartphone, and doing stuff like that makes a difference and helps to keep the show vibrant and going forward. And I think I can also announce I'm still waiting for 100% feedback on this, but I believe Joshua will be coming back to edit as of this episode. So when people hear it, should be have been edited by him. So I'm very excited for that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, he's had a long road, and I'm very grateful that he's doing as well as he is with his health. And it's really good to have him back.
Definitely, especially since your audio editing is below average.
It is awful, and I I tell you that first one I had to do, I was like, oh no. It was the Dwarven Forge one, and I didn't quite know what I was gonna do. So I actually reached out to Peter Bryant of the Mythwits, who is also the head producer for the TSR Podcast Network. And I was like, Pete, I get this episode coming out really soon, and I know it needs some work,
Yeah.
more than I can reasonably do in any time period. What can you do for me, and how much will it cost me? And he did it, and it was great, and I was so grateful for it. But I knew after that I was on my own. I was like, "Oh no, what am I gonna do?" And so I was really mindful, even more than usual, about what
Yeah,
I was saying and doing. And I was like, "Oh man!" But each one made me miss Joshua all the more and
yeah.
appreciate him all the more for everything. And oh man, audio editing is a thankless job.
I wouldn't even know where to start. So anything that you were doing is better than anything I would have been able to do. But yeah, thank God he's back.
I mean, I do very minimal. Like I try to remove extra pauses because I'm asthmatic. I'm a heavy breather, and it could sound like a rude caller sometimes. So like I try to deal with some of that and just kind of even things out a little bit. And I'm actually able to use some automated processes. There's a website called Auphonic
Yeah,
that I use. And listeners, I'll have a link on our, I don't know, Facebook, social media, whatever, to it, where you can be able to donate hours of credit to us for that. So they do like this credit based system. X number of credits equals an X number of hours processing time or whatever. So like I use that, and it's very minimal. Like I don't really edit for content. I
yeah.
edit more for like pauses and things like that kind of stuff. And that's very like mundane sort of thing. But Joshua really goes full force, and I can say to him, okay, at like this timestamp to this timestamp, it's really wacky, or like something crazy happened, or can you remove whatever? And it's still basic editing because I don't ask a ton of him, but like he goes and he does that, and he listens to the whole episode, and God bless him, right? Like you and I were saying, we live this, and I love what we do. I think we do a really good job, and I completely understand why people want to listen to the show. But if I listen to the podcast, that would be me living this 2 or 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I don't want to live this 4 times.
No, once is enough. Once is
It,
enough for anybody.
it really is. And I mean, when you edit audio, and people don't realize this, you basically have to double or triple or sometimes quadruple the amount of time. So if you're editing 1 minute of audio, figure you're going to spend on average between 2 and 3 minutes editing that 1 minute of audio. And we do like an hour-long show here. So you can get the idea of how long it takes to work on what we do.
An hour long. Do you honestly believe the show is only an hour long?
It's usually an hour long, and sometimes it's 45 minutes.
It's been longer than that tonight.
It has, and I tell you, when we've done these free form shows, they've gone longer and people like them better. So what does that tell you?
That's, that's what they like.
They love it. People love it, and they love you. They look forward to your smiling happiness when we play games.
I know the picture is kind of a gag now, but I don't think they love me.
I think our audience does love you, Adrian. And I
Uh,
bet if we were to ask, our audience would chime in on social media and in feedback to us. Please do send emails to Jonathan at wargamingrecon.com, or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. We're at Wargaming Recon, and tell us what you think about Adrian. Unless you don't like him, then I don't want to hear it, because there's too much negativity in the world. We don't need that. We need kindness. So let's have the good stuff going, people.
oh, good
Um,
Lord.
can you tell I have a whole new outlook on life?
I can. It's awesome.
I'm happier, better me. We should all be. Uh that's all I have. What else do you have, Adrian? Are you done?
I was done half an hour ago, but yeah, I'm done.
Cool. Well, thank you for being on this episode of the show, Adrian.
Yeah,
And thank you
definitely.
very much for introducing me to Advanced Squad Leader. I look forward to playing it again.
Thanks for giving it a try. I appreciate it. I think, we get a couple more games under our belt and you get more of a feel for the the core systems, the basic stuff. I think you'll like it. You may not love it, but I think you'll like it. So
I'm hoping I can get to the point that I would like it enough that I would buy a starter copy for myself.
yeah, I think you'll get there.
I hope I do. And
All right.
I really do think I'd be able to. Well, I want to thank everyone else for taking the time to listen to this episode of the show. I want to remind you, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, as I said, we're on Twitter. We also have an Instagram account that I'm starting to use a little bit more. You can check us out on YouTube where we have videos, not only of us recording the podcast, but also when I do other stuff, I put them up on there. If I'm painting or if I'm doing a review or unboxing, that kind of stuff. You can see all of that as well. We're on Patreon, where you can back us at Wargaming Recon. Over there, just head on over to patreon.com/wargamingrecon. I think those are all the things that we're at. And we also have our website, wargamingrecon.com, where you can find show notes if you're so interested in that. Not everyone is, but if you are, you can find that. And from time to time, I'm trying to do more blogging on there as well. So I actually did a whole lengthy blog with pictures of my journey painting those ironclad miniatures field positions. And I actually linked to YouTube videos that I had done as well. So you can check that out and see what's going on with that. And we have a newsletter coming up too that we're trying to get off the ground. So if you're interested, you can sign up for our newsletter and see what kind of stuff we get. And we'll have reminders of when new episodes come out or links to cool things that we have going on. We'll only contact you from time to time. You don't have to worry. We're not going to spam you or send you information to other places and things. And I think those are all the things. So we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the drill. Adrian, where can people follow you?
Facebook page is best, and Twitter works also. I probably, because of the ASL thing that kind of blew up, I was probably done more on Twitter in the last week than I've done in the last year. But yeah, Facebook page or Twitter.
Cool. And where on Twitter are you?
A Benson 229.
There we go. Well, thank you all once again for listening to the show. And remember, no matter how busy you are, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how much time you're trying to spend figuring out exactly where to move your counters on those tiny, beautiful hexes of advanced squad leader, know that you have to, you gotta, you need to keep on gaming.